Hello, my name is Daniel Nally, and I'm with a ministry called Gospel Encounter. And it's been a great joy to be a part of Bridges Christian College and specifically here in Cross Cultural Adjustment. This class has been a blessing to me over the trimester, and the book Apostolic Function by Alan Johnson has been one that God has used to tear me down and bring me to ruins and to also build me back up within the same couple paragraphs within chapters. So, this is my overall review of apostolic function. There was an unreached missional chart given to Alan Johnson, and it was set by his desk, and he would look at it, and God had him pray over it. It wrecked him over the years, and he grew a passion for the unreached people groups. He was driven out of his mind by a chart. He went to an AG church and got baptized in the Holy Spirit. He also read a missionary biography, and he was moved to compassion. This compassion deepened as it came to his attention that nearly 40% of people on the earth do not have an adequate gospel witness. Where church movements exist and where they do not should help shape the priority of where we go. Where Christian redemptive activities take place is a critical issue for those who take the Bible seriously, while also influencing how Christians practice their mission. All the frames need to be looked at together and not seen as competing. Where we go and what we do need to be directed by the scriptures and the Spirit and not the latest mission fad. That we can stay clear in our concept of missions, answer the where question, and best keep in step with the scriptural witness to God's global plan when our conceptions of missions practice are drawn from the Pauline version of apostleship. Johnson shows how mission of God to take the gospel message to unreached people can get lost in all of the work that is happening in the middle of the local church movements where the gospel has already been preached and the local church is established. He shows the need to understand the mission of God as we go into the future. The EPC stream of mission represents the evangelical Pentecostal charismatic movement that sees an urgency to reap a final harvest before the return of Christ. It is estimated the size of the EPC churches by 2050 will be 1 billion. That's a large amount of people coming together with the same mission. We have to make sure that the mission is identified in a united front. Ralph Winter said that Christian world mission refers to the redemptive activities of the church within societies where the church is found, at home or abroad. This is a good way to understand the balanced need for the fullness of apostolic function. This is a good working definition that can help bring needed clarity and unity across the EPC. There are many ways people have tried to find missionary identity, but as we look back to the scriptures, we can glean principles to help us have a deeper understanding of the original missional work of the early church. Johnson does a good job in this section deepening his case for apostolic function. Johnson points out that what must constitute missiological decisions is the scriptures and the leading of the Holy Spirit. And I agree with his conclusion and have reflected long and hard on this tonight as I have considered the points that he is trying to drive home. The gospel must be prioritized to be taken to those who are part of the 40% who have not had an adequate witness. What is the problem of the frontier mission movement? That's the question we need to focus on as we dive into the last two chapters of this book. There are problems with the frontier missions movement that are identified in chapter 7. One is that because everything has become mission, this means that we still lack a conceptual clarity, so missions have become any kind of activity that the church is involved in. The second is that this pan missions takes place primarily in places that have Christian and church movements, causing a disconnect from planting the church among the unreached areas of the world. And a third problem that was emerging was to push was the push to reach all the unreached people. It did damage to the movements that were working in aiding the already established church movement. It also made people feel like they were second class mission agencies or missionaries if they were not working in completely unreached areas. The hidden people are people who are lost in the very sense of the word. They are lost and hidden at the same time. They are hidden by oceans sometimes. They are hidden by mountains. They are hidden by language barriers. They are hidden by cultural differences. It is a combination of all of these barriers and more that Winter says these people are hidden. The missions world needs to know who is unreached and who is reached. They also need to know how to gauge when an area has become reached for the gospel. From the beginning, Winter advocated that the goal of the frontier mission is one of high complexity and far more difficult than near neighbor evangelism. He believes that missions, in contrast to evangelistic organizations, are in the lock of picking business. So this means that they're going to pick the lock to get into unreached areas. Johnson doesn't want to oversimplify the apostolic mission because he recognizes that it can be more complex. There are aspects that are complicated. While keeping in step with the Joshua Project to take the gospel to the unreached, we need to consider the whole idea of ministry and not just one part. There is no time to only think that the only real ministry is ministry to the least or unreached. Our reaction to these problems has to be to take a holistic approach to our evangelism efforts, our mission to the unreached people, and our acts of compassion to all people groups. In the last chapter of his book, Johnson starts off by giving a summary of the book's message. He is echoing here his concern for the unreached people of the world. The three ideas the author presents as the summary behind the apostolic function are: first, having an understanding of the Bible, God's mission to oversee all of humanity, reconciled back to Him. His people in every age are vessels through whom He works to accomplish His plan. Jesus asked His followers to make disciples throughout the entire world. Second, having an observation of the world. When we look at the world today from the perspective of God's mission, we will find that there are vast areas and people who are not aware of the reconciling work of His Son, and neither do they have a living expression of God's people among them. Third, having an observation of the church. The places that have the most believers in churches are continuing to work with each other and ignore, for the most part, these areas that have the fewest. So overall, my interaction with apostolic function has been one, like I said in the beginning, of tearing down to ruin and then building back up. The idea that we are commissioned by God to go and preach the gospel among the unreached, but at the same time to care for church movements that are already up and running in a reached area. And the E1 and E2 and E3 sections have brought a lot of clarity for my own personal theology and understanding of where I'm working and what my specific paradigm is here within my own evangelistic context here in the United States. And I've been in tears many times reading the apostolic function and just considering what real apostolic work is. It's more than someone with the title of apostle who has authority or who even pastors pastors. It's more than someone who has a CEO outlook, as some people have suggested. This apostolic function requires us to have a heart to see the overarching mission of God's work be completed. And I'm here in tears and in contemplation of what this means for me and of my life. I heard a missionary once say, "Why should anyone hear the gospel for a 10th or 20th or 100th or 1,000th time when there are those who have not heard the gospel for a first time?" And that's a powerful question. It's a thought provoking question that's right in alignment with apostolic function. I don't know if I have a good answer for that, but I do know that our balance and our holistic ministry has to be our aim as we seek to use all the parts of the church working together to send out missionaries to the unreached. So it's my prayer that apostolic function would fall in the hands of other ministers, pastors, missionaries, evangelists, so that they too can glean what I have gleaned from this book. I hope that this quick review has been helpful for you, and I hope that as you consider what it means to live the function of an apostle, I hope that it helps shape you and guide you as you learn your specific role in taking the gospel to the unreached people. Thank you guys very much.